Welcome to Passing Knowledge Check, where I teach you some key information, knowledge checks, and general counterplay to some Layer 1 and Layer 2 tactics commonly used by beginner to intermediate level players. Today, we'll be going over Susanoo. Firstly, I'll explain Susan's drive system. Susan has 8 specials, 7 of which are locked at the start of each round. Every hit he connects on hit or block with his normals will move a cursor along the icon/seals above his heat gauge. Whenever he connects a drive normal, he will unlock the special that the cursor is on. If that special is already unlocked to the maximum level, the cursor will move along as before. A special is available to be used as soon as it's unlocked, even cancelable from the drive normal that unlocked it. Susan has 2 jump cancelable normals, which are 5A, which also hits crouches, and 2C. Either hit of 2C is cancelable. 6A is a quick full screen projectile that gives him an answer to zoning and allows him to progress his win condition of unlocking his seals if his opponent is being elusive and outranging him. 6B is the bread and butter of Susan's pressure, a gut punch that is +4 on block and requires you to make use of instant block to escape and contest reliably. 6C is a standing overhead at 25 frames to start up and is only -3 on block. It's cancelable from 5A, 2A, either hit of 6B and either hit of 2C. 6D is a 20 frame overhead that hits crouches on frame 26. I'll talk more about why the 20 frame startup is important later. Just know that 6D is cancelable from anything except for 3C and 2D. To be used in conjunction with 6A, 4D allows Susan to unlock a special or move the cursor without making contact with his opponent. He can also use this to end combos early in order to unlock a really desirable seal. Susan's specials consist of the following: a lariat that can get to level 3, which is mainly used to safely end block strings and extend combos at higher levels. A projectile property DP that has some combo applications. A sand kick that gets progressively more plus on block the higher level it is, and guard crushes at level 3. A 23 frame overhead spin that emits a pillar of light at level 2. It's unsafe on block, but obnoxious in neutral at level 2. Ground Viper, which is essentially a slide that hits low 4 times before a launching mid, which is unsafe on block. Lightning Orb, which is a very hard tool to deal with on block. Gold Press, which is a 30 frame command grab with a counter hit recovery. And lastly Sword, which gives him a very strong presence in the mid range. First off, we have 5A. 5A has incredibly quick recovery to the point where it can be used to safely meaty wake ups against a lot of reversals. This makes DPing or reversaling against Susan Oki very risky without 50 meters for RC for most characters. Next up, we have 5B, 6B block loops. As mentioned before, 6B is +4 on block and has very little pushback while Susan himself advances quite a bit far forward. Following 6B, his 5B will beat out every 6 frame normal in the game, meaning he can basically loop 5B, 6B on block. While this doesn't actually do any chip damage, if you let it happen over and over again, you let Susan progress his win condition, as he will continue moving along his seals until he gets to one that he wants to unlock. So to deal with this, you have 2 options. Firstly, you can use a reversal. This can be a DP, a super, overdrive, or alternatively you can counter assault on the first hit of 6B. And secondly is to learn how to instant block and play the RPS. Once you instant block the second hit of 6B, the block stun will reduce by 3 and he'll go from +4 to +1. This opens up the RPS loop to look something like this. To stop Susan from progressing his seals mindlessly, you IB and then press your fastest button. This will counter hit his 5B. To stop you from doing that, he could do a 6B into 2A. As he's still +1 on block, he will likely still hit you first, or at worst trade. To get away from that, you can IB into jumping away from him. Since his 2A hits very low, jumping backwards and IDing away can be an effective tactic. To stop you from escaping, however, he can instead continue his string after 6B in order to frame trap your jump startup. To prevent getting frame trapped, you can just simply block and punish his continued string. And lastly, to take advantage of you blocking his strings, he can progress his seals with 5B, 6B again, and thus the RPS loop is completed. You have to take educated guesses based on the player you're playing and the current game state for what the Susan will do at any given time. Next up is an F-Shiki from Jump-Ins. Susan can F-Shiki, also referred to as a fuzzy, most of the cast from a jumping JC or even JB. His low option is very committal in 3C, as it only cancels into special and crush trigger. So I recommend blocking overhead for the initial hits of his following block string, as he's unlikely to go right into a 3C after a jump in. Of course, if the Susan you're fighting against actually shows the option, then you have to deal with the mix-up. 6C, 6D F-Shiki. When you block 6C standing, you will be putting enough block stun for 6D to actually hit on frame 20, as I briefly mentioned earlier in the video. This mix between 6C into 6D or 6C into 2D is essentially a 50-50. To deal with this, you can either overdrive or counter assault with 6C. Overdrive temporarily unlocks all specials for Susan. During Overdrive, Susan has access to all of his specials at their strongest level, so keep in mind while he's in that state, he can throw out any single one of them. Speaking of seals, once Susan has his 8th seal, the sword, unlocked, he gains access to another reversal super called Liberating Dagger. This essentially makes chucking out any full screen projectile a very big risk, as he can most likely punish on reaction. The God Press Inescapable. God Press, for some reason, doesn't trigger purple throws when it hits you while you're in block stun. This means that Susan can set up an inescapable throw in 2 ways. The first is by using Liberating Dagger into RC into God Press. You can avoid this by either using Counter Assault or Overdrive to invuln through the God Press's active frames, or you can instant block the super and then jump the grab and punish accordingly. The second way to set this up is through level 3 Sand Kick, RC and then God Press. If you don't barrier the Sand Kick, you would have to burst to avoid getting command thrown. If you do barrier the kick, you can CA or Overdrive as before. If you IBB, which is instant barrier block, then you can also jump out. DP RC throw. Susan's DP has a lot of invuln frames, which unironically makes it an effective Oki tool, as it will outlast a lot of reversal options. A common tactic is to DP on an opponent's wake up, RC it, and then throw. This will also cause a throw reject miss if you OS throw on your wake up, so be careful doing that when he has DP and 50 meter available. A way to beat this is to use OG on wake up, but to make sure you don't get hit by the DP's lingering active frames after your OD activation. You can also use a reversal or EA after your OD, or simply activate your OD slightly later to get a full punish. As I mentioned earlier, Wheel at level 2 spawns a Pillar of Light. If the Susan spaces this correctly on a block string, then you will block only the Pillar of Light and he will be +1. And for the last section, we'll move on to general counterplay. 6D and 2D are very committal options for Susan, and they are both -14 and -10 respectively, so do make sure to punish these whenever you can, bearing in mind that he has no cancel options whatsoever other than RC. Instant air dashing over 6A. As discussed before, 6A is a solid answer to an elusive player for Susan, but it can also be called out with a well-placed IAD and punished. Be careful though, as if the Susan knows that you're looking to punish this, it can always wait to 2C you, so try to pick your opponents well. And lastly, using 3C to end strings. 3C for Susan doesn't have any normal cancel options and can only go into crush trigger or specials on block. It's also -9 on block, making it punishable. However, a lot of Susans will try to RPS the situation by doing a delayed special, usually Lariat, after the second hit, or Wheel after the first hit if they have it unlocked. Keep this in mind before committing to an action after blocking it. Lastly is dealing with Orb on block. Susan's fastest attack at 6 frames is often used to end strings when available, due to it only being -7 on block with decent pushback. While most characters can't outright punish it on block, you can avoid getting caged in by it by pressing immediately after it ends, or jumping away and reacting accordingly after it ends. This isn't easy, but try to predict whether the opponent will end it quickly or hold it. That's all for this episode. Thanks for watching. I'll see you next time.